Hello. So we're aceydesi. And generally we talk about South Asian asexuality. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a website as well. There might be one or other social media platform in there, but honestly, if you just probably look up aceydesi, which is spelled ACEY DESI, you should be able to find us. Our website is aceydesi.wordpress.com.
Yes. But there should totally be a link on our Instagram. If you just search us, you'll find it. And that should have links to all our socials and anything else we think is important.
For sure. Yeah. And start off, I'm Vipasha. I'm a South Asian ace.
I'm Bhavya, and I'm also a South Asian ace. Today we're going to talk about South Asian celebrities, because why not? And obviously, because this is an ace platform, we're gonna interlace, some aceness into there and anything and everything around that.
So yeah, okay. So kind of one of the first things that we're gonna start off with is notable South Asian celebrities. Obviously we've got Lily Singh, Tan France, Jamila Jamil. In general, they all have really great attributes. And then there are some things that I know that I just look at on social media and I'm like, wow, people are being really mean to these people for I guess whitewashing and blackfishing in some cases. And I'm like, okay, maybe we could take it down a notch, but take a step back. So yeah, let's get into it.
I mean, I think it's really fine to call them out on that sort of stuff, but you have to give them that space to learn and do better. And I feel like a lot of times that's not given. They just fall. Their struggle to get up was already hard enough, and then they fall again, and they have to get back up and push even harder. And this time it's probably even harder because there's so many people being don't watch them, don't support them, and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, growing up, I guess Lily Singh is the perfect example for this. Growing up, I would watch all of her YouTube videos and everything. And for me, that was incredibly important because I generally lived around a very white neighborhood. And so I didn't, obviously see a whole lot of myself, the classic story of a Indian girl in the US not knowing how she's supposed to conduct herself because her family is Indian and her friends are generally not. And so Lily Singh was incredibly important with all of that because she's talking about stuff that we're all thinking and I guess just not really sure how to say it, or we're not really able to kind of I guess just really figure out how to go about our lives. And it's comforting. It's nice.
And it was kind of a guide because I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up, and any friends I had were kind of more from my Indian community. And it's school expects one thing out of me where, they might want something that's more, more westernized. They don't want conservative really expectations per se, the way that the Indian community does, because that we're Indian, we're all very religious kind of people. So there was you got to be respectful to your parents. There's God, there's values, there's all those things that we Hindus tend to believe that you have to deal with. And so it's I was just toying this line of just I still want to be that good kid and not get in trouble because I'm very much a people pleaser, but at the same time I still want to be doing my own things. I got tattoos, and the first one I got had to be religious one because I was if I get that one, then my parents can't yell at me because it's religious. And my second one was this very similar thing where it was a religious thing. I mean, they both still have special meanings to me, but they were religious, and I was they can't yell at me, it'll be fine. And then then I can go get the fun ones that I want to get that aren't necessarily going to yell. But it's just for a very long time I was still very self-conscious about even showing them, because I was just I'm gonna get so much hate about it. I used to get hate about I don't know, I felt I got hate for my hair because I cut it and it's super short, and I'm just it makes me happy, but I feel it's something that's not very seen or okay with they see people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They're you got to be feminine, you got to have the long hair, you got to be that perfect bride. But I'm I still very much love my Indian side, and I definitely agree with those values that I grew up with, and some of those values that I grew up, and I am totally fine with some of those expectations. But I also need to be able to show myself, and I need to express myself in ways that are not necessarily appropriate in figure quotes to the Indian community.
Yeah, and I think Lily Singh, Tan France, Jamila Jamil are great examples for a lot of us to go off of, and Mindy Kaling as well.
Yeah,
because they seem to quote unquote pander or whatever to like whiter audiences, but in order to probably get to the level that they're at, like the people who are their producer, directors, whatever they're called, people in the industry who will actually give them that ticket up or like the money to be able to do whatever they want, those people are typically white.
Yeah.
And their audiences are also on the white side. I mean, just looking at like the general American population, it's mostly white people. That's just how that works here.
Yeah, and I think part of that is like even we do that. We whitewash ourselves to a certain extent to make them comfortable so we don't get hurt in the process.
Yeah.
And that we become more palatable. Like I grew up saying, it was basically anyone who wasn't like desi. I think, pretty much that. But I would say Bhavya. My name is Bhavya, not Bhavya, which is the way that my parents made me. And it's the way it's meant to say. And I still do it to this day. I'm 25. I still do it. Like I recently got a job. I said Bhavya at work and I'm like, I need to improve this. I mean, it's such a simple word. It's not a really long one. And it's like, there's that conversation that comes up with people of color celebrities where it's like, if they can say something like Bach and Beethoven and, you know, all those fancy English words from like old historians and stuff, they can say people of color names. They can take that time and effort to pronounce it.
Like instead of saying tan, they could be saying Tanvir.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, oh, I should probably try to say like Tanvir more often. But then I'm like, oh, well, I guess Tan is his stage name or performer name, whatever it is. So it's kind of just like, I guess it depends on the situation that you're in.
Because I mean, for all we know, that could be his nickname and that's what he likes to be called.
Yeah, kind of digress with that one. But no, that makes sense. I think it's kind of like we hold all these celebrities to a really, really high standard of like, oh, you shouldn't be whitewashing, you shouldn't be like just trying to make yourself palatable for white people, blah, blah, blah. When one, we're doing that ourselves, and two, we don't actually give any like good feedback or like good advice for how to be less white.
Yeah.
Like what are you if you're the kind of person that does say like, hey, you need to stop whitewashing, blah, blah, what is one thing that you would like to see them do more of, or one thing that you would like to see done less of? And also, are you doing that sort of thing as well?
Yeah.
There's that, what's that? There's like some sort of a quote that's something like, it's easy to kind of like criticize somebody else but like when it comes to you, it's much harder. I'm paraphrasing, or I don't know, pulling the meaning out of the quote, whatever it is. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I don't know, drop it in the comments or whatever. I don't know how this works.
Drop it somewhere so we can see it. Send us a DM.
Yes. Send me a letter. Wait,
Snail mail.
Don't send me a letter, because then you'd have my address and I don't know you unless I do know you. Anyway, okay, this is not important. We digress. Send Lily Singh a letter and I will try to watch the episode that she brings it up in. Yeah, that's good. This is good. This is a great idea. I think, so got all these celebrities, holding them to a high standard. It is important to be like, hey, it's important to be aware that they are whitewashing, palatable for white people, blah, blah, blah. And then it is on the other side for us to be important, and on the other side for us to be important for us to be aware of those things within ourselves. Yeah.
But also I think the thing is like whitewashing is like, it's not a universal experience, but it's something that we all have, because like season 2 of Never Have I Ever come out recently. And so I've been seeing some TikToks where they're talking about like, she may not be your story, but she's someone's story. And she's not great, but she's a teenager. She's trying to deal with all this stuff.
Teenagers are shitty, notoriously.
Yeah. I mean, I was probably a shitty teenager, and like, we all have different ways of dealing with things. And there were some, I will find this and I will put it in the like comment or whatever. But there was someone that was talking on TikTok where she was like, Davy is what we all wish we could have done. She acts in a way that's like what we wish we could have, like no impulse. She just did what she wanted. She didn't hold back in fear of repercussions or hate from people and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. 2 things that kind of came up with this as you were talking. So one, I read some sort of article, I think on somebody in the comments quote me if I'm wrong, but I think on the Juggernaut, which is a South Asian run article news website thingamajig. Mindy Kaling said that Never Have I Ever is not something that she wrote for everybody to be perfectly relatable, for it to be perfectly relatable to everybody. It's her story.
Yeah.
The Mindy Project is her mom's story, to some degree. Obviously, she's taking a lot of like creative license, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But like Mindy Project is her mom's story. Never Have I Ever is her own story. And I think that's really important to kind of like note that like they're going to be bringing in elements that they experienced. The second thing was, forgot the actress's name, but whoever plays Devi.
Maitreya, I think it is.
Yes, her. She was talking about that exact thing that you just said, where like Devi is bold and generally fearless, probably impulsive is the best word for her. There's that one point when the cousin Kamala is trying to figure out what to do with like her workplace, not giving her credit when she did like this incredibly important thing for the science paper or whatever. And Devi was like, no, like you need to rage, you need to do something about this, bitch. And basically, there's like a perfect quote for it. I wish you know what? We'll just put it in the comments. I'll make a note. But yeah, there's like, and it's an incredibly important, underrated moment where she's just like, no, like you've got to stand up for yourself. When I watched that, I was like, wait a minute. That like actually clicked for me too. Like as a professional now, like there are some things about workplace that I'm like, I would like this to be better. Yeah. And you have to stand up for yourself because you're the only one who's looking out for yourself. And you have to just kind of hold that place accountable. And you do that by low-key raging, but in a professional way.
That's something we're not taught as kids because first of all, like there's that part where we are desis and we're taught respect your elders. And with that is like, don't backtalk on like, I mean, in a way, not standing up for ourselves, but then we're also women, or at least we were like assigned female at birth. And that's also there where we're supposed to be like submissive in a way, like that perfect housewife. We're not supposed to be raging and try to get our needs and vocalizing what we need for our own health, like physical, mental.
Yeah, for sure. Slight side note, something about, earlier you said like Devi is a teenager. She's cringy. Teenagers are generally kind of the shitty side. Some other commentary that I've heard about it is that it tokenizes or it's anti-Semitic and some other stuff in there. I think, that critique might be valid in like some parts of it. But for the most part, I'm thinking about this as like, this is a 15, 16-year-old girl. She is going to solely think about herself because that's how teenagers are. They're just generally selfish beings.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this from a teenager's perspective, all of the other characters are going to be in this one-dimensional, two-dimensional type of space. Everybody else is going to feel tokenized, quote unquote, because you're looking at it from a teen's lens. If this was a college TV show or like post-college TV show and they were looking at it from multiple different lenses, that would be a different situation. But we're hearing Devi's thoughts through some random male narrator, which is also funny. There are some times when they do make anti-Semitic jokes, and I'm like, it's not so much that the TV show is making an anti-Semitic joke. When I think about my high school experience, like there are kids that have made far worse jokes. This is not like an uncommon high school experience. Like high schoolers are shitty. Like we're saying this, like this is a normal thing. For the TV show to make an anti-Semitic joke is very accurate to the current high school experience. There's so many kids that, randomly drop the N-word, will swear all the fucking time. I, in high school, was not one of those kids, but now I swear all the fucking time. Because, again, I was, the goody two-shoes, desi girl. Okay. One thing that's so refreshing about this TV show, it talks about sex. Like, literally, like, Devi is sex crazed. Like, the entire first episode, oh my fucking Lord. I was like, No.
I know, right?
Why?
I love that because like there's this whole thing where I feel like people of color and especially Asians are thought of as asexual, but at the same time like not asexual. And it's like, I mean, we're totally are asexual, so we're just like whatever about sex. But there are kids and people who aren't asexual out there, and they want that representation, and they need to be felt like it's okay because our society sure as heck does not make it feel okay. It's very taboo, and they can be going out there and getting STDs or doing stuff they shouldn't be doing or doing stuff in an unsafe way.
Yeah, I'm just glad that like this TV show's just discussing this in a general sense.
Also, quick note. When we were talking about like high schoolers saying like the N-word or the TV show having like anti-Semitic jokes, we're not excusing it. We are just saying this is what happens. There's a process to our growth, and the show is trying to show that, I think.
Yes. Also, another note that probably should be said is take a lot of things that we're saying with a grain of salt. Understand that we expect you to understand nuance as well. And yeah, we're not trying to be like, oh yeah, let's like say the N-word now. Woo. It's like, no, we're good. Attempts to try to be sort of woke-ish.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I mean, we all learn because like I'm a Star Trek fan, and I'm pretty sure I've probably like, and I read fan fiction, or I read, but there's a term that Dr. McCoy, this is, I think, more like newer Trek with like Chris Pine and all that stuff. But in fan fiction, Dr. McCoy will be like green-blooded hobgoblin to Spock a lot. Them talking or, reading in fan fiction, or if I might have written any, like I might have used that. But in the last couple of years, I've learned that's not okay because that is very anti-Semitic. And there's that process of you've got to learn and improve. And yeah. I don't know where it's going with that, but just learning, growth.
Okay. So I found the quote, the exact quote that I was talking about, where that whole scene with like Kamala, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So Davy says, Kamala, you've been wronged and it's okay to demand it be righted. Everyone thinks Asian women will take all kinds of crap like bow or hand them a cup of tea or some shit. You can't let them. I was like, oh my fucking word. This is amazing.
Yes.
We need more of this.
Yes, we do.
We have talked a lot about Never Have I Ever.
We have. Maybe this will just be an episode of Never Have I Ever rather than Asian celebrities.
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's other stuff okay, you know what? Well, there was other stuff that we were gonna cover, but it's not important. Everybody else has already covered that to like
that's true,
some painstaking degree. And I guess people have also covered Never Have I Ever to some painstaking degree. But we're gonna talk about the ace side of it as well. Because we're ace. So like, that's what we do here. Welcome to our social media channel. I don't know what this is called. We'll figure this out.
Welcome to our platform.
Yes, thank you. Episode 2 of our podcast. So we're really just trying to figure this out. In the second season, okay, so we probably should have said there's a lot of spoilers here.
Yeah.
Then this might be a spoiler. I don't think it's too big of one. For those who don't know, there is there is a lesbian character. Forgot what her name is, but she's
Fabiola.
Yes, Fabiola. Thank you. I am really bad at remembering names in TV shows, but somehow I'm great at remembering names in person. I don't know.
The mind is a weird place.
it just things happen in here.
Yes.
Fabiola. She is the lesbian best friend. She's one of the characters that people are like, tokenized, blah blah blah, because she's also black, half black, whatever. It doesn't matter. She's black.
Yeah.
And I think in the first season, she does end up getting a girlfriend, or at least is like super into somebody. So in the second season, you see a lot more of her throughout that season and kind of like see how she is like. Like she didn't realize she was queer until she like saw that person was like, wait, oh shit.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm queer. And so like as somebody who is literally just starting out, their journey into their queerness and whatever, she doesn't know how to be queer. She doesn't know, how to quote unquote dress. She doesn't know who are all the major people in the queer community, etc. All she really knows is that all she really knows is that she likes women.
And I think there's also a part to that where I don't know if it's expressly stated in the show. I feel like it might be more of a headcanon, and it's very much proven throughout the show. But Fabiola has very leanings of being autistic. That adds this whole other spectrum of like trying to understand yourself. First of all, you're trying to understand yourself being queer, but then you're also trying to understand yourself being autistic, because the world expects a very different thing than what you want.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And like, this also might be like a mini headcanon, but that also might be just like my brain doing things. She seems a little bit more like on the ace side as well, because whenever like you do see her kind of like think and talk and everything, she doesn't acknowledge like the sexual attraction part of it, or she doesn't really acknowledge sex a whole lot. Which, for especially like a teenager, sexual attraction and sex are going to be heavily conflated. But yeah, okay. So when I think about this character, I think her journey is interesting in that like she doesn't just fit, what a quote unquote lesbian person is supposed to look like. I think the quote unquote was in the wrong spot. Whatever. You understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
She goes through this whole journey of like, trying to look that way, act that way, trying to learn everything about it. And in that journey, she could feel herself kind of just like, she could feel the things that she actually loved and care about, I guess, kind of like dying out a little bit. And she ended up kind of like losing some really important parts for a little while. And then she was like, no, fuck this shit. I'm going to do this whole lesbian thing my own way, which kind of, obviously it's a sitcom TV show, so it's going to resolve by the end of the season. So she ends up like at least figuring out the first steps of her footing with that.
Yeah. I was actually, a lot of TikTok. I just like recently installed TikTok, so apparently that's all it's gonna come out right now. But I saw this TikTok where there was this girl and she like got a girlfriend, and she was very much that like stereotypical lesbian in the beginning, like because she was like figuring out that she was lesbian and all that stuff. She was like very like gay, like being gay and being lesbian was her only identity, and her, I think it might have been, I think his wife now, but like, anyways, the person she was with was very patient with her and understanding while she was going through this process of from like understanding that she was gay and understanding she was lesbian, and that having be her only personality to becoming her own person, where yes, she's a lesbian, but it's not her only like identity.
I guess the best way is the way Queer Eye puts it, where your queerness isn't the whole thing of you, it's just a pillar.
Exactly.
And I really love how like Queer Eye puts a lot of these concepts, because it's like, you don't have to be just, one thing, because it's kind of hard to just be one thing, first off.
Yeah.
It's not really that interesting. And then you are a person who's going to grow and change and everything like that. So having, multiple pillars or facets to you, I think is important to acknowledge. But yeah, I think that was kind of interesting how like that journey went on. So I'm thinking about it. The other best friend, I again also forgot that name. She's the one who's like really into drama, and like her mom's like a theatrical, I think, singer. I
honestly don't remember her name. I'm like, I could picture her in my head, but I do not remember her name.
Yeah. Again, in the first season, people are like, she's talking nice. And then the second season, you do see a lot more of her again. And she has this whole relationship and everything. And it does kind of cover, I guess, in a lighter way, because it's still a sitcom. But like it talks about at least emotional abuse. And it's really interesting to see how Devi, I guess, kind of like interacts with both of those relationships, and how Devi's just like, she's still, her impulsive, bold self, and she still has a fire. And she's like, hey, I don't like how your boyfriend's like treating you. Like, he's really shitty. He's putting you down, blah, 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 blah. Sure, it takes some time for like the friend to be like, oh, you don't understand. And it's like, yeah, you don't understand. He still loves me, blah, blah, blah. And it takes her time for her to get from like that point to like, oh shit, he is shitty. I think it's interesting. You can also see how, I guess, Devi grows, like even how she interacts with that part of it, because she doesn't just, drop her friend when her friend is like, being shitty back to her in the beginning. She still is like, there for her. She's still trying to be supportive and everything. And then like, when things get worse for her friend, she's like, hey, I got you. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's I love that they have like this crazy breakthrough point for Devi. Mental health. They talk about mental health in this show. And I'm like, oh my Lord.
We need that.
Yeah.
Mental health in the way that, is just for neurotypical people. It's important there, but it's also important, especially with neurodivergent people, because first of all, like our community doesn't talk about mental health. There are some very visible, like in my life, I think we've had a couple family friends who have had sons who are autistic, but the way that their autism presents is on the spectrum where I can't find the words to say it, so I'm just going to put it this way. I do not mean it in this way, but it's like the worst end where they are very like nonverbal, or they need more structure to their lives, where their autism affects them more rather than being like something that women typically see where they can mask that autism. And so then they're like, oh, it's not good. And it's very like hush hush. They don't talk about it. And it's something that needs to be talked about. ADHD, like all these like mental disabilities. I don't know what the word is to say without like offending people, but mental issues that need to be talked about, because I'm sure there's so many people that have gone through like that have like PTSD in our community because of relationships that aren't great, or like parents that are like abusive, either physically or mentally, even if the parent didn't necessarily mean to be. It's just that's the way they grew up, and so then they and forth bought that to their kids.
Speaking of, and I know we're talking about the show a lot, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of like how the mom is in the show, where like there will be parts of her there. I think the mom is obviously a very complex character, I guess, in the show, as complex as you can be in a sitcom.
Yeah.
When I think about her in like an outside context, incredibly complex. Like she's going through her husband's loss. She's got, a family and everything to run. Her daughter, she doesn't know how to control or how to,
how to help her.
Yeah, she doesn't know how to help her. Yeah, that's what that is. And she has like a lot of good to her. And then on the other side, because she's also tired, exhausted, also dealing with all of this stuff, her mental health, isn't great as well because of all of this. It's definitely coming out in different ways that isn't as healthy for the family as it could be.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting to see how she develops as well. Yeah.
I think it's also nice because at least this is from what I remember, I feel like they have a slightly more open line of communication than a lot of Desi parents have. And I think communication from a very young age, like having that open line, having that someone to like trust, because yes, they're your parents, but like being friends with parents. There's this one TikToker, I think her name's like Tori something, but she's got 3 kids, and she's like, my mom said like she was never my friend, she was my parent, but I try to be friends with my parents, not in a way that it's friends with peers, but friends so that I can understand their life and that I can help them help them improve their lives, or just help them be better people. And we don't have that line of communication with our parents. And I think we were talking about this the other day, but like we sort of have it now because we're in our mid-20s, and we've gone through this entire pandemic where we're forced to be with our parents almost 24/7. But if we hadn't gone through this pandemic, we might have not gone that. And also,
for sure.
And also we have nice parents, or like parents that are like willing to have that open line of communication with us, where I'm sure there's a bunch of other kids they've lived with their parents throughout this pandemic, but they're not willing to have that open line of communication with them.
I think with Davy's parents, you can see like her dad was definitely this open, loving character. So he so he's this open, loving character. And then you have the mom who like, she's a little bit more traditional. She's a little bit more strict, but like as they grew and everything, he definitely influenced her, and they worked together. They grew together and everything. They have like, an interesting relationship that you kind of see glimpses of throughout the TV show, even though he died. But like, you see it in flashbacks, of course. But I think mom, she's like a little bit more willing to kind of like have that open communication line with her daughter. One, I guess, because of maybe how the dad used to be and kind of like imprinted. And then 2, Davy is so loud and impulsive. She does not let you not listen.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's another part of it. I think that's something that's kind of interesting, where like, I know that for me, as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten bolder.
Yeah.
I don't like that rhymes, but we're here. But yeah, so I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, look, mom and dad, like, you need to listen to what I'm saying. I will not stop, like, I don't know, saying these words until you're listening. Basically, like, low key, I am Davy, but like 23, so like not as cringy.
Yeah.
Definitely still cringy. I'm sure when I look back, like when I'm like 30 or something, I'm like, oh my fucking Lord, I can't believe I did that. I'm like, I'll look back at this podcast and be like, oh my God, I can't listen to myself.
Right.
Yeah, maybe, you know what? We all need to be a little bit more like Davy and just like charge forward with their lives. Be as cringy as like you need to be.
Yeah.
And I strictly say be as cringy as you need to be. Not want to be, need to be. Because that's how you're going to grow and learn. I know that we started talking about like, you know, a bunch of celebrities and stuff, but like that's maybe like, you know, how a lot of celebrities started. They do have to be a little bit on the cringy quote unquote side, but they're growing, they're learning. I know that, you know, if you watch Lily Singh's first video to like her first YouTube video to like, you know, the latest YouTube video, they're just definitely a huge difference in who she is and how she talks, how she's grown, etc. I think that's crazy awesome.
Yeah. And also the world doesn't care about you as much as you think you do, because I mean, like with my tattoos, I was so scared. And then one day while I was packing to move, we had a bunch of uncles come over, and one of them happened to be they're very Western in the way that they are compared to the family that I grew up with, or like the like family friends I grew up with. And that day it was just a really hot day. I was like, I'm tired. I need my water. I had been wearing a tank top that day, and I had a plaid shirt over on most of the day so I could hide my tattoos. That day I was just like, and I'd taken off because I was hot. I was like, there's someone coming. I don't care. So I just walked into the kitchen with my tank top on, and the uncle saw my tattoos, and my dad happened to be there too. And he was like, oh, these are so beautiful. Like, when did you get them? Or like, he was like talking to me about it, like in a very like positive manner. And my dad's like, she usually hides it. And he was like, why does she hide it? These are beautiful tattoos. And I was just like, oh my God, like I don't know. It just made me really happy.
I love that. Oh, that actually reminds me, like when I wear not, you know, the classic red, pink or brown or whatever lipsticks, you know, when toss on like a black or blue or green, whatever the fuck. Especially like at a, like some desi event, like it'll even be like a religious event and stuff like that. Typically what I found is that like, you know, if people don't love the makeup, they won't like, you know, say anything. But like if they love the makeup, they'll talk to me about it. And I'm like, yeah, I do this for you because you're cool and awesome. And I like
you. And you also do it for yourself, like,
and myself.
Yes. Like I mean, where I live now is, it feels very more desi having people than I did up where I was before. And I've like, today I went and got my brows done, and I was walking around with like a shirt and a tank top, or like a tank top, and like, so my tattoos were a full out show. And I was just like, I see a lot of people and I feel like they're staring at me. And there was a part of me that was just like, I hope like it's negative, but also I was like, I don't care. This is me. This is who I want to be. You are just someone who is passing through my life. I'm not even talking to you. You're just someone who's seeing me. Like, you think whatever you want. The people who are important to me will like my tattoos, and they are fine with the way I am. They will love me for who I am.
I mean, it's the classic log kya kahenge. Yeah. I mean, what will the people say? Like, please tell me. Tell me, I'm waiting. But now that I guess I'm like kind of cool. So yes, log kya kahenge, fuck that shit, which I guess is also kind of how Davey thinks, which is interesting.
Also, it makes kind of random, but it also makes me wonder, like, what, because that's a very Hindi phrase, and I feel like that's very North Indian.
Oh yeah,
I know it's totally something that's said in South, but I'm just like, how is it said? Because I mean, my parents never said that kind of stuff to me. I think it was more subtle, or it was stuff that my mom internalized and never told me, and she only told me as I started growing up. But I'm just like, what is the South India is a very big place, but it's just like, what is the equivalent in those workplaces like? So if any of you guys are listening, like, let us know in the comments or whatever.
Please do. I want to learn. I'm North Indian, so I don't like know.
Yeah, like I'm like, I probably know how to say it, but I feel like that may not be the way it's said, just because, you know, there's dialects and words can mean different things. Like I I hear jokes of like, so there's one way to say that like there's like highbrow Telugu versus like lowbrow, and if you say something in the more like lowbrow version, it can be taken as offensive. So you have to say it in the highbrow version because then it's not as offensive.
Oh,
but they mean like the absolute same thing. So there's the one that's coming to my mind right now is so there's two different ways to say like how are you. So the proper term is like miretlo naru, which is like so how are you, like how are you doing. But then you can say like ni wuletlo inde, which is like how is your body, and then that just taken as very offensive, like you're just like saying that in a very like negative way, just like how dare you say this kind of thing or something like that.
That's fair. I guess it's the most similar thing I can think of in like North Indian, or I guess like Hindi. I was about to say North Indian cultures, North Indian as like a language, just for anybody who's like, oh my god, she just said it. Okay, whatever, fuck. The thing that I can think of in Hindi is like the difference between like aap, tum, and tu. So like if I were to like speak to my baba or my grandpa on my dad's side, I would say aap. I try to say aap as much as possible because I don't actually know enough Hindi to like do it properly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I kind of mean aap, but I'm probably saying this incorrectly. It'll be some sort of a phrase that I'm just like, I have no idea what the fuck.
No, I get that because like I was talking to this one guy and he happens to be Telugu too, and he was like, "Oh, I bet you know Telugu better than I do," and I was like, "I don't know, like I grew up so I can like conversation," but then so he like texted me in not in like Lippy, which is scripted Telugu, but like the Englified version of it, and I was just like, I understand this and I know how to respond to this, but I also don't know if I need to say this in the like formal way where I'm still respecting you because we're just talking. I mean, it's talking in a romantic sense, but like, I was just like, I don't know if I need to say this in that way or if I can say this in the way that comes more naturally to me just because of like, who do I talk to my parents or like, because my parents aren't as into like the formalities. So I was just like, I don't know how to say this. So I'll just be like, I'll respond in English and let them know. I understand you, but I cannot respond to you in this.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like my dad's side is a lot more formal than my mom's side. So like my mom will call her mom tum, but then and my dad will call his dad up. Like there's like a very like the families are very different. I think that's kind of interesting to see kind of like how you have these two families who are Indian and they are technically, you know, from the same socioeconomic status, yada yada yada. And then they operate in completely different ways. And I'm like, this is why y'all are arguing.
Right? Because
like aren't talking about this shit.
Seriously, like so my dad's side is the one that I mostly grew up with just because my dad's got 4 brothers and 2 sisters and they all have like 2 or 3 kids. And they were the side that we saw like growing up. And it was just so different. But then I learned a couple of years ago, because my mom was I always thought it was just my mom had her parents and her sister. But I learned a couple of years ago, her mother has like 6 or 7 sisters. And so there's a whole massive family there that like I didn't know about. And we happened to like go visit them. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many like people here. And it was just, they had like very different vibes compared to like my parents' side. And I was just like, this is interesting to see the difference and stuff.
It's so weird. Yeah. We've definitely completely gone off from celebrities and have talked about our personal lives. So this will be an interesting edit. I am so sorry.
It's all good. We'll either end up with like a 2-minute video or like the entire length.
Good. But we don't want to take up too much of your the listeners, I guess, whenever you're listening to us, time. Main points are, I guess, give celebrities just, you know, a little bit more grace. Remember they're people. Yes, they're humans, just like you, I hope. And we're all a little whitewashed. Yeah. And be more like Baby from Never Have I Ever. That's what I got. What you got?
What would Baby do?
Oh my God. This is going to lead us down like a very long path. But we should probably end here.
Yes.
So
thanks for listening to us ramble.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day. Night.
Time zone. There we go. Covers everything.
Yes.